Hi, this is Daniel from TrustGraph, and today we're going to go over an introduction to the basics of TrustGraph to understand the philosophy behind the decisions we've made and how you can interact and utilize the power of the TrustGraph platform. Now, if you go to the GitHub, you'll notice that we strongly encourage people to start with the configuration builder. Now, you don't have to. The TrustGraph containers are built through a YAML file. Now, you're more than welcome to manually edit that YAML file, which is what we initially intended to do. However, those are thousands of lines long now as TrustGraph has grown in capability. It's quite easy to make a mistake in those YAML files, and we selfishly built this configuration builder for ourselves. And at this point, it's what we recommend on how to build these configurations. Now, you're wondering, how do we do this? There's a separate GitHub repo we have that utilizes Jsonnet for all the different patterns of which you can create the trust graph configurations. Now, you're probably thinking, well, if you have all these Jsonnet patterns, could we use AI to generate the actual configurations? We think so, and it's something that we're thinking about in the future. If that's something you're interested in, please let us know. Now, when you first start on the configuration builder, the first thing you're going to notice is version. These are the different versions which you can currently select to deploy. This is 1.0.22 is our latest stable release. 1.1.7 is currently in pre-release as I'm recording this video, and that's featuring our latest developments with MCP and some other agentic features that we're going to be releasing very soon. Now, where do we go beyond that? If you're just getting things up and running for the first time, you're probably going to choose Docker. We also have for Linux users Podman. If you really want to try Kubernetes out, Minikube, and then our more complex cloud deployments, we actually have other repos for those as well. So we currently have deployments for two different ways in AWS, Azure, GCP, Scaleway, and Intel Tiber Cloud, which we've actually been running on Intel Bare Metal as well. Our default graph store is actually Cassandra, which of course is not a knowledge graph system, but it just goes to show you don't have to use a knowledge graph system to store knowledge graphs. However, we still support Neo4j, MemGraph, and FalconerDB. Quadrant is our default vector database. We still support Milvus. Pinecone we support, but it is a third-party service, which means you'll need an API key. So keep that one in mind. This is where you would just choose your different chunking algorithms for the data extraction process, which I'm going to get into a little bit later. So why do we have this toggle switch for dual model mode? Dual model mode allows you to deploy two different LLM connectors, whether it's cloud connectors or even locally orchestrated models. Why would you want to? One is for the data extraction, so that you take the raw data and the LLM that you're using to build the knowledge graphs and map vector embeddings. The second one is purely for the RAG request. The thinking is you probably would want a bigger, more powerful model for the data extraction, and maybe you can use a smaller, more efficient, quicker model for the RAG that's much more cost efficient. But that's up to you. You can do it with one, you can do it with two, and also in TrustGraph, there's a lot of capability that we've yet to really demonstrate and on multiple different kinds of models in the system at any one time. You go to this drop down, you'll see all the different model deployments that we support. We also currently support TGI and VLM. We just haven't added that to the config builder quite yet. And you select your models. I actually have TrustGraph up and running right now with Mistral, so I'm going to just show you that what that would look like. The customization tab, I know this looks like it could be overwhelming. Like, what is all this stuff? You don't really need all that much. The workbench, we always recommend leaving toggled on because that's what I'm going to show you next on how you can interact with TrustGraph in a UI. Document RAG, what is this? If you want to do pure vector RAG alone, if you toggle this on, that will give you that ability. That's not recommended because we do believe our hybrid GraphRAG approach is superior, but if you want to test them side by side, this will give you that capability. OCR pipelines allow you to choose from additional PDF OCR processing with Tesseract or Mistral's OCR model. This one gives you a huge amount of customization on the different embeddings models you might want to use. Our default is this model. There's a very common model using fast embed, but you can see there's a lot of different models you could use if you want to try them. And if you want to use Hugging Face instead, these are some other models you could try as well. And of course, this is all fully automated. Whatever you choose, it'll build the containers and deploy that in a single package. What does that single package look like? When you come here to this page and click Generate, that's going to create a zip file. If we go down here, it'll tell us that zip file, once you unzip it, it's going to have the YAML file that I was talking about with all the different container settings that you will need. And if you, on the first time when you launch Docker, of course, it's going to pull those container images from the Docker hub. This stuff down here is mostly only if you're using Linux. And this instructions is just going to tell you whatever models you selected. It'll tell you whether you need to set an API key, whether you need to set an IP address for, say, a Llama deployment, etc. Now, this is the workbench. It's still in prototype. We're still getting a lot of feedback on what people would like to see in it. And we're still adding quite a bit of features right now. So some of this is still in test. Now, the first thing you're probably going to look for when you launch the workbench is you want to get data into the system. And that happens in the library. Now, as you can see, I've already got some documents loaded here. Now, if at this point, I talked a little bit about philosophy. I think if I speak a little bit about the philosophy of TrustGraph, it'll help you understand some of the decisions we make and why it sometimes seems more complicated than other solutions. So we've designed TrustGraph with two key concepts in mind: modularity and scalability. The modularity is why the config builder has so many different options, because TrustGraph natively supports everything you saw in the config builder. All you have to do is select it. The containers will be built, the containers will be pulled, you Docker compose up, and everything works. No coding, nothing needed to be done. This is why we say it's a future-proof solution for enterprises looking for AI transformation. No matter what comes down the way, TrustGraph will be able to immediately connect to it. Scale. TrustGraph isn't designed for demos. I mean, you could use it for a demo, but that's just not what it's designed for. This isn't designed for single users with single data sources. There's lots of solutions for that, and that just isn't why we designed TrustGraph. TrustGraph is designed for large scale of data, large scale of data sources, large scales of users, meaning that you have lots of data coming into TrustGraph that has to be managed, and then you have lots of users requesting it at any given time. If you keep that in mind, some of these assigning decisions I hope will make a little bit more sense. For instance, the library. This is essentially a staging area. And you're probably thinking, why would you want to stage the data? Why wouldn't you just want to process it immediately? Well, there can be quite a few reasons. One is our knowledge package feature. Out of these 5 documents, say you only want 2 of those in a knowledge package, and then 1 in another package, 2 in another. So you need to actually start those extraction processes with that in mind. So if you just all did them in one batch, it would all just get lumped in together in a single knowledge graph and vector embeddings, and maybe that's fine. But if you want to be able to manage those knowledge packages later down the road, being able to unload them from the system, share them with somebody else, have version control over them, you need the staging area. Another reason might be you just might want to stage all the data for processing at a time overnight when everybody is not working, or compute resources are more readily available, or sometimes just because costs are lower. As I said, I've already loaded some sample ones. You can see in the CLI Getting Started guide, the Quick Start guide, TG load sample documents will load these into the system. If you wanted to load documents of your own, you would just click Upload Data, and this gives you a way to upload PDF files, text files, either copy and paste. So let's say if you've seen any TrustGraph videos before, you know how much we like the Rogers Commission report from the NASA Challenger accident. Let's select it and get it processing. And we're going to select a processing flow, which I'm going to talk about next. And we can see that that completed. We go down to the submissions and we'll see that job has been created. We're not creating a knowledge package for it yet. We're going to actually talk about knowledge packages a little bit more in a video to come. Flows, though, are important. This is a new feature of TrustGraph. Now we have a way to manage processing flows in a reusable way. We can chain together different sites of processing in individual flows, give them their own IDs so that we can choose, I want to be processed through this processing flow A, processing flow B, processing flow C, etc. And this button gives you the ability to create different processing flows. I talked about how some of the tabs in the config builder you didn't really need to bother with so much anymore because they're here in the workbench. These are all the prompts in the system. So this is actually the agent manager in a React style agent. You can edit it right here. Extract definitions, extract relationships, and extract topics are the three agents for doing the data extraction and the automated knowledge graph building. Agent tools. As you can see, there's no agents currently loaded in the system. That's because I can create them here. I would give it a name, give it a description, and then give it arguments. This tab is where MCP tools are coming very soon. Now that we have a little bit of data in the system, let's talk about finding it. Let's see, what's something we could ask it? Well, we know it's about NASA, so let's ask about NASA. This is just performing a vector similarity search right now. We see we pulled Space Shuttle Challenger. Okay. What are we looking at here? This is just a simple representation of knowledge graph triples that aren't in RDF format or cipher, just a little bit easier on the eyes. But if we want to be able to visualize them another way, we hit Graph View. And now we have a 3D graph visualization of that data. Now we can take all these, pull them apart. We can even see the directionality of it by clicking on it. And if we double click on one of these, we'll see all the other data in the system, which we may not have extracted. There we go. Lots of data in 3D. And we can drag this around and do all sorts of fun stuff with it if you like to do your knowledge discovery this way. Or we can use GraphRAG chat, where we might ask, who were the crew members of the NASA Challenger? At this point, this is just performing a GraphRAG chat. In the next couple of days, you should actually see an agent chat added in this as well. But again, the Workbench isn't meant to be a production app. This is really a set of tools for loading data into the system, testing that it's there, being able to manage it. You would use the different APIs to build your applications on top of it. And this is also running on my laptop right now. So that's potentially why this is a little slow, even though it's calling out to the Mistral API right now. But I can assure you my fan on my laptop is at high velocity right now, managing the temperature of running the system right now. And there we go. My laptop survived, thankfully. That's a brief introduction to TrustGraph and all the capabilities that are coming down the road very, very soon. Please let us know if this was helpful, what kind of content you would like to see. The next up on the agenda is a deep dive into pub sub architectures and Apache Pulsar, why TrustGraph is built on Pulsar, why we chose it, and why that gives us we think an advantage in scalability and reliability. Flow, or the new Flow API, is going to be something that we'll talk about soon. Knowledge packages, and we see a lot of interesting work coming very soon around MCP and potentially MCP security. So lots coming. Stay tuned.